later on, just about 45 minutes before we started our show, early afternoon, Micah Parsons had quite a bit to say on social media, including I still have stayed quiet, but after repeated shots at myself and all the narratives, I have made a tough decision. I no longer want to play for the Dallas Cowboys. My trade request has been submitted to Stephen Jones personally. So where are we now? Where do we go from here? The tease was, what if Micah Parsons plays this angle in his holdout? And I'm going to get to that in just a second. The Cowboys are saying we're going to have no response through Todd Archer's Twitter account, so salute to Todd for that update. And then Ed Werder tweeting, source, despite his public ridicule of the Cowboys organization and his trade request to the Dallas front office, I'm told Micah has no intention of leaving training camp and incurring $50,000 in daily fines as mandated by the NFL. So you start to play it out from here, guys. And I think this becomes very interesting because Micah doesn't want to hold out right now. He doesn't want to leave and incur a $50,000 fine. And he said his back was hurt, right? So there is the illusion of injury. What if Micah Parsons, when the season starts, says, I don't want to miss checks. I would really like to play, but dang it, my back still hurts from those heavy back squats that Trayvon Diggs was telling you about.
Ooh, okay. All right. Yeah.
I mean, is he protected there? Can you say I'm injured? I mean, what's the recourse that the team has at that point?
I feel like there are league rules to this. I know teams have gotten in trouble for not reporting injuries when they have happened, and I don't know that you can necessarily fake an injury. I mean, teams have done that to, like, put a guy on IR.
He's faking injury right now to avoid fines. That's the hold in, right? I'm here. Oh, I'm hurt. You know?
Yeah, my back's tight.
This isn't a holdout. I'm here. You know? What if week one he says, this is not a holdout. I'm here. But damn it, I got out of bed this morning and rolled my ankle. Got a boot on right now. Brian, can a player do that? Would a player do that? What would be the recourse from a team if this thing plays itself out in that fashion?
Are we talking about Micah potentially doing that?
Lingering into the season saying, oh, my back hurts, now I can't play. I think that you're not able to do that. I don't think you can.
It would be that would be tough. I'm trying to think about if I've ever had to deal with a player just completely, just tanking for not to play. I just can't think of one right now. I'll tell you what I'll do.
Okay.
Like I say, is it possible? Sure, it's absolutely possible. But you're gonna have to prove. The team will file a grievance against you.
Yeah, and if they do, it's considered an unfair act, and it will be it's violating the collective bargaining agreement.
It's a violation. So I guess they could, but you'd have to go through a doctor, and then there'd be a doctor in the NFL Players Association side. There'd be a doctor for the team, and
what if he plays and he's making business decisions and not getting off the ball? I mean, you could talk about those kind of things and playing things out. If you
that'd be conduct detrimental.
Yeah, that would be conduct detrimental to the team.
Could you prove that?
You could fine him.
Well, if you show the film where he's just
loafing,
missed camp, not in shape. So you're trying to play me. I'd love to play hard. I appreciate the $1.5 million a game I'm getting here, but I just wondered, what that could look like if it played out that way. So then you start to, go to the next layer in the conversation, which is more like chemistry and morale and the relationship between the front office. Can you build a great culture if you're stringing your best players out like this? And I think that's a really interesting subject to look at, but then I start to think of the Cowboys in the 90s, and you had a big holdout with Emmitt Smith. You had a big holdout with Michael Irvin that was contentious. That culture was fine, But now the difference here is that maybe everybody else on the team is starting to feel like if I play great, it's just going to be a massive pain in my ass. And, I don't want to deal with that here.
Man, I'll say this. This is the first one that I've kind of felt, well, they haven't done in a timely manner. They haven't been able to get deals done. They've got a couple of deals done.
With the top tier superstar market setting players, they drag it out. They're not proactive at all.
Yeah. So to me, that's that's kind of where you
this is what Howie Roseman was talking about last week with the Eagles. Like, the advantage of getting the deals done is your guys know you have our backs, and he thinks there's value, in the culture to that.
I totally agree. But this is, this organization has honestly paid top dollar.
They have
for every player that they've had.
They just make you wait, and up until now, you're going to get it.
The player gets
100%.
Player gets a 4-year deal and gets top value, and so you're like going, was it worth the fight? For a player, they're like, I got less years and I got more money. I don't know. If I'm a player, I'm just kind of like, well, we got what we wanted out of this deal.
This is the most it's ever blown up. Do you think it's registering for the Joneses at all?
See, that's what I'm saying. This is the first time I felt like that the Joneses have really drawn a line in the sand. This is the first one where they're like, okay, this is the first time where I detect a player really upset with how the negotiations are going. Am I off on this one?
No, but I think they're upset too, clearly.
There's no question they're upset.
So it's both sides.
But it's both sides, and obviously, they probably felt like that they had to deal with Micah. They probably felt like that they had one done, and
then he went back on his word.
And he went back, and so.
But in defense of him, it isn't really fair.
It's not fair. You talk to my agent and all that.
I get what he's saying.
But again, the agent works for the player.
Sure.
So if the player says, I like this. Let's go forward. Let's do this. Then you're like, okay, fine. Well, here, we'll talk to your agent.
Micah in this message said he liked the framework. He was surprised Jerry was trying to talk deal and said, this sounds pretty good. Talk to my agent about it. Let's get this hammered out. He never said, from Micah's perspective, we have a deal.
Right.
Maybe Jerry
they had the
thought
framework.
that.
Obviously they felt like they had the framework for something they
Isn't
could do.
that dirty pool to try to be doing deals behind the agent's back like that, though? We're not even talking to Mulligetta. We want to get this done with Micah.
They tried to do it. Parcells and Jerry tried to do it with Romo.
Yeah, remember they put him in a closet or something?
They put him in an office and said, hey, listen, would you, and that kind of thing. Is it the right thing to do? Maybe not. Is it business? Absolutely.
How different is it? I mean, we brought up Tank last hour, and that got contentious. Tank was just a little bit more quiet and professional, or quiet and didn't want to, say his side of the story as much. Remember when Tyron Smith was hotter than a, whole nest of firecracking hornets back there or whatever? Mark that.
That was incredible. I don't know what you said, but I loved it.
Okay, the sleep deprivation is showing up here.
Firecracking hornets.
A nest of firecracking hornets.
A nest of firecracking hornets. He was mad. So you've had mad players before. I do not know if this is that different. I think it's just now you're dealing with Micah Parsons, who's very social media savvy and knows that he's going to blow up his brand by taking advantage of this opportunity right now to make it a huge story.
I think people, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think people are more upset by the Diggs things than they are with Micah. Does that
the fans?
Yeah, the fans. I think people are more upset of how they felt that Diggs was treated as opposed to how Mike is being treated.
Jerry was ruder about Diggs, and Steven's been ruder, but I think the fans understand Trayvon's not as good, and he has been hurt. So I think they're frustrated with him. From the fans' perspective, Micah is elite, and this just isn't how you should be doing deals with elite-level players. Now, why are the Cowboys doing this? It's similar to Tank Lawrence situation where the franchise tag is so significantly less than what the player is asking for, and it is market value if the guy hits free agency. But the Cowboys at Edge like to do this tag, and I'm not exactly sure on all the reasons why, but they like to do it, and that makes sense to me. So I think the way through this is some sort of compromise. Like if you want 4 years at $41 million, you want $164 guaranteed, we can play this out at $3.85. Is there somewhere in the middle, like $3.95, $3.100? That's the only way this gets done. And I think to Micah, that's offensive because he sees what T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett just got. He sees what other great pass rushers who have come up got.
He's playing the Myles Garrett card right now.
But
he's doing.
Do you give the additional $7 to $10 million on an annual to make your star player happy if he has not been a leader at all, has not participated in OTAs and mini camps? I think the answer to that is justifiably no. For the Cowboys. I'm not mad at the Cowboys for what they're doing with Micah. I don't want them to trade him, but I think they're playing like agents are trying to bust your ass.
Right.
How could you be mad at the Cowboys for negotiating back just as hard? I can't. I think that's sound business. And as a fan of the Cowboys, if you're going to manage the cap like it's, this really solid asset that, you can't go over this number or that number, then your only advantage is to negotiate, to your maximum potential based on the rules of that CBA. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, and if you're the Cowboys, you don't have really a reason to have a sense of urgency to do this. It's like, we thought we had this done with you. Now you're coming back and saying this. Well, all right, you're under contract this year. And if we can't get anything done, we'll tag you, to your point. And if that doesn't work, we'll tag you again. So you're kind of in a very terrible spot if you're Micah, because you don't really have any leverage. So, the play with the media here is really kind of the only move. If you're sitting there, the only card that I can play now without losing money is let me try and just stir this thing up, get everybody talking. Maybe I can create some kind of friction some way towards the Cowboys, and we'll see what happens from there. But he's under contract. I mean, to me, he's going to show up and play, and if he doesn't, then I'd be absolutely stunned.
Yeah, I guess I was until this morning. Now I think to him, it's clear the Cowboys are planning to tag him, and he looks at it like I could get hurt and have this generational wealth that I've created off of my playing career so far take a serious haircut, like a 65% haircut. And, as long as we're talking about how the public perceives this, maybe the difference for anybody between $85 and $200 million, you're like, well, what are we talking about here? It's an insane amount of cash. But I guarantee Jerry negotiates, like the difference between 85 and 200 is $115 million of wealth for my family that I can use to invest in our futures. Maybe that I could start a foundation with. It's nine figures of money. So, you have to acknowledge that as realistic for Micah Parsons when you're looking at, I don't want to lose a game check.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to lose $115 million of value.
Right.
And a game check is 1% of that approximately.
Yeah, that's why that's his best leverage play. And he'll have to wait that out until the season actually starts. So in the moment, he's doing the only other thing that he can do, which is request the trade and show how frustrated he is by all this. But I think part of it, too, is it's just he is probably your best player, second best player. Maybe you would say Lamb. I don't know. But you're doing this with a guy who's clearly one of your best, and you're using the Diggs and the Steele and even the Dak contracts as reason why now you're scared to pay Micah, because you pay Dak all that money and then he gets hurt, misses the season, and he wasn't even good before that. You pay Diggs, he's been hurt. The Terrence Steele thing, but Micah's in a completely different class, and you paid Terrence Steele voluntarily after he tore his ACL. That's 100% on you. This is not apples to apples. It's not the same player, and it's not the same situation. Micah's not off an ACL, so you can be butthurt that you gave Terrence Steele the contract. That ain't Micah or anybody else's fault but yours. We were at Globe Life Field broadcasting with Mike Bassick the day that me and Walchuk were, and we're looking around going, why would you do this? Who's forcing you to do that? Nobody was. You decided to pay a guy who just tore his ACL. And even before that he's a fine player. He's nowhere near Micah. Trayvon Diggs is nowhere near Micah. And even Dak Prescott, nowhere near as good at what he does as what Micah does. And so all those contracts where they haven't paid off for you are now, they're kind of hesitant to want to go make a move, other than with Osa, who's taking well below market value. And it's like, dude, a guy like Mike is not going to do that. He ain't Osa. He ain't Terrence Steele. He ain't Diggs. And he's not Dak either. Yeah. So it's just like they're using those contracts to justify why they're scared to play what is a player that anyone in the league would have already paid by now.
What if they're scared about the player? What if they're scared about the off-the-field stuff? And I don't mean off-the-field is the negative stuff, but they keep bringing up the leaderships things and stuff like that. Why all of a sudden, when it's a contract year, that you want to be this leader?
See,
and we've talked about this, and we've talked about this actually now for a couple of years, that there's people within the organization, and maybe it's not about the contracts, which you've said it and well said, but maybe this is more about like there is a real apprehension about paying a player that hasn't had the success, say in the playoffs or off the field.
No, they definitely feel that way.
But you can say that about Dak. You can say it about Dak.
Yeah.
But it feels like to me that they're thinking like, wow, do we really want to do this? Do we really want to make a commitment with a guy that? And right or wrong, I just kind of feel like it's more than a Steele contract. It's more than a Diggs contract. I think there's some real apprehension about giving this guy this money.
I just wish they would have been more proactive about it. You said they've been talking about it for years. Okay, then go ahead and trade him and get all the assets for him instead of bringing it to where it is now.
No, you're not wrong. I'm just saying. I think the way that we have to look at this is there are people that are telling Jerry Jones this might be a big damn mistake.
Yeah, well, he does not fit with the culture that they're installing. Everybody is happy. They're coming off like a church leadership camp with the vibes around here.
Man,
like,
again, let him hold out. Let him hold out the first game, and Donovan Ezraku have a sack and a half, or 2 sacks or something like that, and then they still might get beat. But let one of these edges show up,
make a change,
and then it'll be all of a sudden it'll be like, well, okay, we're fine here. Let's see you keep holding out and giving up $1.8 million a week.
Or it's the Emmitt Smith thing, and your secondary is the worst in the league, and a rookie didn't dominate Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, and you lost by 50.
They could very well lose by 50 anyway.
They could. I mean, they were getting blown up.
Lose to the Giants the following week without him. Or something like that.
See, that would be huge.
Yeah.
I think the lesson here for the Cowboys might not be we got to trade one of these guys. The lesson clearly is we got to jump into negotiations and hammer out and find middle ground and have a sign of good faith that we value here. We're not trying to confuse you here. We're not trying to whip your ass in negotiations. We're partners, right? And I think the Cowboys players are starting to feel like we're not on the same page. Now, so here, you mentioned the best player. Like, is Micah the best player, the second best player? He's the best defensive player. So now you have your best defensive player and Dak Prescott, the undisputed leader of the football team, all not messing with Jerry like the last generation did. Like Tony and Jerry, they were arm in arm. And, the defensive players, they never had any sort of issue that got to this level. So what is the ripple effect through the locker room? If the absolute leaders on the team, the guys that everybody's looking up to say, Jerry kind of messed with you. Let's not be buddy-buddy with Jerry like all the players in the history of the Cowboys have, because he's not looking out for you. He's firing shots at press conferences. And we know Jerry values the relationships with the players, so I think that's potential motive. Like when Jerry starts looking around at the players and maybe instead of saying, hey, what's up, Jerry, as he walks through the commons, they're putting their head down like, oh, man, there's Jerry. Damn, what's that fool doing here? I think that, might change Jerry's approach. But, yeah, find a compromise, find common ground. And if you don't have like management or front office or whatever coming to you and saying, hey, we want to get a deal done, that silence is very fertile ground for resentment. That silence is inviting the human mind to start making up reasons for why the silence is there. And the first thing they're going to get to is disrespect, and then the second thing is going to be like, wow, it'd be really cool to be somewhere where I get to feel important and valued. That is a huge part of job satisfaction. So I think that's, inside the mind of Micah right now.
Yeah, but you also got to give the front office reason to feel that way, right? That you do bring value.
Yeah.
He brings value as a player.
That, yeah.
But maybe, and this is where we don't get to see all this. We see the player. Mm-hmm. We don't know what always happens on the other side of the fence.
That's well said.
But yeah. I don't disagree with you. The player, I don't know how you respect the player. But, man, there might be something on the other side of the fence we don't know about.
I mean, the communication will find common ground.
Yeah.
And if you're not picking up the phone and even trying to have those conversations, it's just it's hollow.
Maybe he's not giving them a reason to pick up the phone.